That's the old Alaskan maxim. If it moves and it shouldn't, duct tape. If it doesn't move and it should, WD-40.
I too grew up on the Red
Yeah,
Green Show.
that's how we took care of moose. Duct tape. Here's something I've maybe never told you about Alaska. Do you know how we keep moose from eating our trees? Like the trees in our yards, not the forest trees. They can eat those.
Shotguns?
Soap. We hang soap off of them.
Hmm.
So if you ever go to Alaska in the winter,
I think my mom may have actually done that with deer.
I'd really like to claim everything as Alaska specific, and you're really getting in the way of that.
Maybe you can hum the theme song, won't hold it against you if you get parts wrong. While the memory's not too strong, there's a piece of you from a time long gone. So while these fuzzy warm feelings remain, the question we ask is still the same. Is it a treasure or just plain lame? Is this still good?
Hello, and welcome to 2025. We made it. Gavin, we made it.
That's a lie. We're recording this in the winter of 2024, and
Don't spoil the illusion.
Don't know if I believe that this podcast will ever come out, let alone that I will see the first sunrise of 2025.
Well, Gavin, if that doesn't happen, they won't have absorbed this information because we won't release it. Not everyone made it, but we made it.
Let's be optimistic. Why not?
All right. This is Is This Still Good? A podcast about digging up childhood treasure and seeing what resale value, if any, it has on the open market, if it was ever worth talking about, if memories are still good, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing a little roundup episode, the way that we used to when we had clearer plans for this podcast.
I was going to say, it feels like even based on your repitch of our podcast in that concisement, we've moved from kind of nostalgia to an evaluation to a commercial reduction. And I don't feel bad about it. I mean, I think it's where we're at. And I think 2024 is a great year to look at in that sense, as we look back on how our podcast has turned into looking at the rhymes of history and the rhymes of media, and how original voices are being drowned out by IP. And I guess there's money to be made, so let's get it.
Yeah, it's not a new concept. We've just kind of filtered it down. That doesn't stop me from panicking every time I hit record and just say a bunch of shit.
For sure.
So as you've been paying attention, we've moved slightly. We've been doing something really fun in addition to our normal shtick in the last 6 months, and that is using things that have come out. We're using them as tie-ins to explore other things that might be a previous entry in the franchise or something from that director or something thematically related. However we can justify getting from point A to point release date next week. Which has been, I'll be honest, it's been very creatively freeing.
Yeah, it's inspiring. It's fun to be able to look at how we're bound by what has come before.
Well, the hardest part of organizing this podcast is deciding what to do and when it should come out, and having those decisions made for me really helps.
Yeah, we used to try and hand it off to the guests and see what they wanted to do.
Absolute
but now
chaos.
If we just but as a peek behind the curtain, if we
happen?
just, know that there's a Wicked coming out, and maybe it's time
Good
to
segue.
Have a look at where the Wizard of Oz wound up in its second outing.
Yeah, Wicked, a movie we're not going to cover today.
Lights of fire under our butts. Well, so
we won't get to everything. There's some things we didn't see. There's also a lot of things that we missed, either because of scheduling or because we didn't know that they were going to be thematic tie-ins. I'll give an instance. We saw Juror Number 2 pretty recently, and it never would have occurred to me to cover 12 Angry Men. But my God, that movie literally lifts plots from 12 Angry Men. Didn't know Megalopolis was going to be a remake of Clockstopper.
Comedy comes in threes, third movie.
Yeah, and sometimes we just Beetlejuice comes out and we forget that we had planned to do a Beetlejuice episode.
Yeah.
quick news update before we get into some of these movies. Going forward in 2025, the year that we're currently in,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
we're going to try to hit a bi-weekly release schedule. I'm putting this out there to the world to keep myself honest. Some of those are going to be re-releases. We have been, if you've been paying attention, we have been remastering a lot of things. Everything that's in my capability to remaster, I've touched up, which means do we still have the original files? So some of those will be that. We'll continue to tie stuff in, but we're really trying to focus on the embarrassing gaps in each other's knowledge, where I'm going to force Gavin to watch things I've been talking about forever, long before this podcast, and he's going to do the same to me. And we'll probably have some guests come on and be like, "How have you not seen?
How
I
have
don't know,
neither
all
of you
the
seen?
any of the Pierce Brosnan Bonds, for instance." We've got some very fun episodes already banked, so we think we can hit those bi-weekly release schedules, including a crossover with our friends over at Make That Song Now.
Give them an email, by the way. They like it when you say hi.
Yeah. All right. You wanna get into it, Gavin?
Sure.
Right.
Let's talk about the year that was 2024.
There's one theme this year, as studios cash in an IP. I kept watching some of these new projects and thinking, wow, they have a really good idea, and there's just some studio bullshit kind of keeping it from being great. That kept happening that year. That happens all the time.
Sure.
I feel like we usually start from a worst spot, and studios are not helping from that. We had some really good creative ideas. The first episode that we did, I'm just going to knock this out, Twisters came out. Gavin, you still haven't seen it, right?
I still have not seen it.
I really liked it when it came out. I don't like it less now, but it doesn't have staying power. It's not a movie I'm thinking about. It is a fun disaster movie. It's also a movie where there's, as the name implies, a lot
Multiple
more
Twister.
tornadoes. Yeah. Well, there's multiple Twisters in the first one. I actually don't understand why this movie is called Twisters and not just Twister. There must be some market research supporting that decision.
Why didn't they do Twister with the two backwards on the end?
It's not about how many Twisters there are in each movie. It's the fact that this is not a sequel. This is very much a reboot going through a lot of the same things. There's almost no tie-ins or Easter eggs. There's no Helen Hunt doesn't show up, which I genuinely expected. In fact, there is a moment in this film where a character's mom comes and she starts in the darkness, and you are so sure it's going to be Helen Hunt and that it's Mara Tierney. It's just some other 90s actress. But 100% that role must have been written for Helen Hunt, and Helen Hunt just couldn't do it.
Might have been a late minute scheduling conflict, or she just said no.
Yeah. Do you have any question about Twisters?
No, I think you bring up an interesting... So the idea of the Lega sequel, which was really famously used in Scream 5, I want to say, that is interesting that maybe that is just something that they think of as a better way to print money than doing a reboot. And
I think we might be pivoting into that. I will also say Twisters stars Glenn Powell, who was in one of the most profitable Lega sequels of all time the year before. And I'm sure they wanted to keep that connection. Be like, hey, this is like Top Gun Maverick with tornadoes. Come see it. Come give us Tom Cruise money, please. The studios are dying.
Well, and Top Gun as a Lega sequel, I'm trying to remember how well that would stand on its own shoulders. It didn't feel that connected aside from...
It goes through, it follows, obviously Tom Cruise is still in it, but then Miles Teller is playing the son of his partner who died. So you've got that thematic test. But they didn't bring back Kelly McGinnis for Hollywood reasons. She looks 40 years older than she actually is now. So they instead bring in Jennifer Connelly, which I will never complain about more. Jennifer Connelly.
Sure. I'm just trying to think of Lega sequels that have been, in my mind, one that really stands out is, and I don't know if we talked about it or not, but Candyman.
We never, It's
is one
surprising we haven't caught those.
Maybe the future episode, not to spoil anything, maybe, but it's interesting to see a movie like that as a Lega sequel that I honestly don't think I don't know if that one works as well if you don't. It almost makes no sense if you haven't seen the original movie. They try and recap as much as they can, but it
Yeah.
almost doesn't stand on its own feet.
Yeah, and it ends up twisting into it.
Whereas Twisters is much more of a reboot, like you're saying. I'm assuming, but
Literally,
is
the
there
only
any
connection
callbacks
is
at all aside from is one of them Progeny?
their tornado machine, which in this case
Right.
they are trying to stop tornadoes, is called Dorothy 5, implying there's been 4 other Dorothys. I would argue that if you have a tornado machine, you call it Dorothy. Like, that was obvious the first time around, it's obvious this time. I've got an actual arguments with a friend who feels way too passionately like, no, this is a sequel, it's not a reboot. And I approach it from a place of, why do you care this much? I feel like my points are good and you're just missing me.
That's going to sum up how I feel about Twisters without having seen it. Okay.
Look, you'll watch it on TV someday and you'll be like, oh yeah. I personally liked it more than Twister, but that's comes
Twister was
more
fine.
from Twister was fine. We did the episode, it was fine.
Yeah.
I want to check in on a couple things. They also made we did our City of God episode with my friend Yvonne. I'm not going to try to say his last name again because I fucked it up then. I'll fuck it up now. They've completed the entire season of City of God TV show, which takes place 20 years later and really checks in with every single character. You watched the pilot of that last night?
I have seen the pilot, yes.
Okay. I've only watched like 2 or 3 episodes.
That is half the show, Sage.
Oh, is it only 6 episodes?
It's only 6 episodes.
Maybe I will finish it then. It is a lot of what I expected and what I pitched in that episode. I was not expecting to check in with every single character. And it doesn't seem to come from a creative place. It seems to come from availability. I compare it to because like all those actors are also still, just hanging out in Rio and haven't had huge successful careers. So you could grab them and put it in your movie, even if it doesn't necessarily make narrative sense. You've got characters that like left and escaped, but they came back.
That was an interesting moment. Yeah, there's the girlfriend of one of the Tender trio who, in like a very haunting moment, he gets gunned down, she escapes the slums, and she's back in a way that like I actually did buy. I get the idea of coming back and wanting to make where you grew up a better place.
Yeah, she's coming back to commit some social justice.
Yeah, I bought that. I understand where you're coming from.
The worst thing, it's just like when you see it over and over, and also like they bring back the runts, and because
as
it's
main characters,
people who
feels like.
Yes, and I could not tell you if those are the same actors because I will never be able to identify an 8-year-old versus a 30-year-old.
I was gonna ask you because I mean, Rocket's looking older.
How could I know?
I was definitely having trouble figuring out. Does it take place? Is it 2024 or 2022 or whenever it came out?
Yeah, so it takes place when the original movie came out.
Okay.
So I'm personally hoping at some point there is a development where there is a City of God movie being filmed within the show and they have to work around that.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that.
Yeah. No, if HBO can really Irma Vep it.
God, I need to finish Irma Vep too. Yeah. Think you're right. I've only watched part of the movie, I think. That's one that really it is on my list. I haven't seen it. We got a particularly good guest to come out and school us on it next season.
Couldn't we just watch that? That's not. We don't have to turn everything into work.
I like what you're thinking. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I from what I saw in the pilot, it was a lot of setting up, and I think that like if this were a feature, this would have been cut down and more heavily edited. Felt like it was already a little bit padded to get to the hour mark in the pilot. But there was a lot that I really enjoyed. They're trying to bring back the style. Every time they cut back to the original, it does feel like it's less TV in a certain sense a little bit. There's a little bit of that, just like, I don't know if it's just that they're on film or what, but like the grade feels a little bit pushed. The colors feel a little bit muddier. And it makes me a little, but it's also like they're on a TV schedule too. So I don't know.
Yeah, and who knows what that is in Brazil. I will say, like, even on TV schedule, like, everything looks so much better than 10, 15 years ago. This show looks so much better than, say, City of Men, the
Mhm.
first TV sequel that they did.
I wonder if City Men. I didn't watch City of Men. I wonder if that was film or if that was digital or
That's a
tape.
good question. The other thing it reminded me of, a show that I stayed up till 2 a.m. watching last night. The next part of Cobra Kai is out.
Huh.
And I
Okay.
bring that up because Cobra Kai exists to check in with every character, every actor who's ever been a part of Karate Kid franchise, with the exception of Pat Morita, who's obviously dead. Hilary Swank hasn't shown up, but they do manage to put in like Elizabeth Shue. They do make these actors who are a villain or a sub-villain show up for like 8-episode arcs, and everyone has gotten so much more out of Cobra Kai than they actually did in the Karate Kid franchise.
I mean, I do like how Elizabeth Shue's career does seem to be as more of like an 80s almost it girl.
Yeah.
And now she's kind of like a calling card. And every time she pops up, because I didn't really grow up with her movies, like I didn't watch, is it Adventures in Babysitting?
I thought it
Is
was
that
like
her?
Back to the Future, but
Um,
or
I
she
didn't.
might be the replacement in two. I
Yeah,
forget,
I don't
but
think she's in
she's
the
one of
first
the.
one, but she's great. Every time she shows up, she is
She's
extremely
wonderful.
charming.
Yeah.
And like again, I didn't know her as a child actor, but she is awesome as
Yeah.
in her current state, just popping up in everything.
Is your
And
current touchstone The Boys, basically? The Boys season 1? Is
so
that
again,
your.
I actually don't really recognize her because I have face and name blindness for anything and everyone. But she is enough of a character that she shows up as herself in things pretty often, and I find that deeply endearing. So I'm always happy to see her.
All right, let's move on to something we were all very excited to happen to us. They made more Ranma One Half. Have you gotten a chance to check out this show?
Yeah, I've watched a few episodes. I've complained to you enough off mic about how difficult it is to steal a Netflix account these days.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but when I'm over at other folks' houses, I can make them watch Ranma, and it's a show that you can jump into. I'm very impressed. I remember seeing when the trailer came out how good it looked and how more and more animation these days, especially when it's like winding up on platforms like Netflix, is moving towards 3D and or like even if it is trying to be 2D, it's like 3D animation playing like 2D.
Mhm.
I think about like the Godzilla movies that like I really wanted to like, but I just couldn't get past the animation style. Arcane is an interesting one that I haven't watched, but like that looks like a beautiful way of mixing 3D and 2D. And when the new Ranma reboot, I guess we'll call it, came out, it just looked excellent. It just looked really solid and beautiful. It had all this crispness of like the lines. The main thing they seem to be doing is just kind of upping the color contrasts in ways, is my understanding, but they're keeping the same humor, same jokes, the same
Yeah.
pacing. It looks
Very.
really fun.
You showed me some Ranma episodes and of the original show, and I went ahead and watched some more on my own. But I'm not as versed in the lore. I always forget everyone's names, even as they're showing up now.
Sure.
How faithful do you think it's being? Have you caught any like real differences? Because to me, it's just like, wow, this is the show I liked, but it looks better.
Yeah, so I've only caught like a couple episodes, like I said, but to me it feels extremely similar to the old show. And I
Yeah.
mean, they're both pulling from a manga that has both the manga and the show have are one of those things that have run for like ever. So the idea that they'd need to rewrite anything is a little silly. And it's been long enough since the series that I'm sure they could just reboot it. And that's the thing that like you know, the trailer for How to Train Your Dragon just came out, the live action remake, I guess. And I look at it and I'm just like, I don't want this. I don't need this. I like that movie enough. Like How to Train Your Dragon was great, but I don't need to see real humans. Like the cartoon, the way that the signifiers of like animation work strongly is that they are able to present a face that you can relate to almost more easily than a human sometimes because you're just looking at the cues for human emotion.
Yeah.
rather than the subtleties of them. So they're kind of broader in a way. And to put that onto especially child actors becomes a little bit of a tougher sell. That being said, it's long enough since How to Train Your Dragon came out, and I'm starting to soften on the idea that maybe kids especially deserve new kids movies, and parents deserve to be able to bring something that is familiar to them but also new as an easier sell to their kids. All that to say, yeah, I mean, I don't know who's showing Rama to their kids, but cool, I guess. Good for you.
Not really necessarily for children, I would still argue.
Yeah,
They're still
it's a
keeping the
YA
aesthetic of
show.
like there is, nudity in this film,
Yeah.
and we're just going to solve it by still not having nipples.
I think that's the right call. I think that's great.
I mean, I guess so. I would say you could work around just having less nudity, except it's
Sure.
still a Japanese cartoon.
That's fine.
Yeah, I've seen it done worse. I wanted to mention really fast. I watched that How to Train Your Dragon trailer this morning before this, and there's a really interesting thing going on where it doesn't feel like they're bringing dragons and these cartoon aesthetics and putting it in the real world. It feels like they are plopping humans into the animated film. And I think a lot of that is that they are clearly not filming these in real locations. These are on volumes. These are in front of green screens. And I don't know, that really breaks my heart, especially when you've got, a film shrouded in mist on islands and
and enough money to probably go somewhere beautiful and film these. I've only looked at stills, so I haven't seen the actual trailer itself.
Yeah, but why make this movie if you're... And it's the same director as the original, Gerard Butler. It's got some of the same cast. I like those things. I don't know. That's a movie that is close to my heart, and I am kind of more disappointed looking at this than I ever have been watching a Lion King trailer or another Disney remake. That I care more about How to Train Your Dragon than pretty much any Disney movie, animated movie that I've seen.
I think I have a signed DVD copy because I went and watched it at Lucas Ranch, and I got it signed by the editor, but I have name blindness, so I didn't know he was the editor, and I complimented him on some other work that I think either the cinematographer or DP or the director did. And he just kind of smiled and nodded and signed it, and then just kind of walked away a little dejectedly, and I feel really bad about it.
Oh. I want to move forward to our first kind of review. We've somewhat reviewed all of these, and I would argue that our three-tier system of judging movies from the past is very much one question when it comes to something that's been redone, which is, was it worth it?
I thought you were going to say, is it still good? No, that makes sense. Sure, yeah.
It's just was this worth the time and money that they put into it? Was it worth our time and money to go see it?
Okay.
So we've got some guests lined up to talk about some other stuff, and they'll pop in. But the one thing I wanted to cover with you, we did a Blues Brothers episode, which was our tie-in to Saturday Night, and we were blessed enough to have the production sound mixer of that movie, who's also Steve Morrow, who also did Joker 2 and Juror Number 2, and as far as I could tell, is the only sound mixer working right now.
Yeah. Now that he's not here, we can tell him what we really think.
Yeah, I can tell you what I really think about Steve Morrow. Are you ready? He's so nice. He's so funny. I can't wait to have him back. You have to get Hoyt van Hoytema next.
Sure, yeah.
Anyone who can talk as in-depth as Steve did about the process of making Saturday Night, which, for those of you who didn't hear the episode, was all lavalier microphones, all hidden on people with some specialty microphones to fill stuff in. But that is... if you can nail it, it's an easier workflow for everyone other than sound. But I guess we're at the point where we can do it. I would be terrified to commit to doing a movie that way, because it takes so much work. But the they had assist from costuming, they had assist from everyone, and they were able to set it up so every single person could be heard on their body mic. In addition to all the live music and all the other fun stuff on that. I'm sure that was a phenomenal set to work on. What did you think of the movie?
Honestly, I loved it. This is my kind of movie. I love me a pressure cooker.
Yes, you do.
Green Room, Uncut Gems, like those are the kind of movies that really sing to me, because I have so much ambient stress in my own life that I struggle to understand. And to have a movie make sense of stress and just put people in a stressful situation that is going to end at some point
Are
is
you saying
extremely relaxing to me.
anxiety on film makes you feel seen?
It makes me feel calm. Like
Oh,
it actually, it's not even that I'm seen, because my stress is much more ambient. It's just in the fucking ether because I can't settle my brain enough to understand it. But looking at people trying to put on the first episode of Saturday Night Live while no one seems to believe in them, and they're not sure an audience is going to show up, and they're not dealing with now the current legacy of this longstanding program that is looking for, honestly, like, I would love to see someday we'll get a movie about the changeover from the current showrunner to the new showrunner, and I bet that
yeah.
will also be great.
I mean, I
But
want that movie from because that already happened in the mid '80s. Lorne Michaels got forced off, and someone else
right,
was. Yeah, I want that movie. And then, are you talking about what's going to happen in the next few years when
yeah,
Lorne Michaels? He might die before he retire, but it's either way, he's not going to be running Saturday Night Live.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I
or
really
could die
enjoy
with
this.
him, but I think it's too much of a cash cow.
Yeah, no, I think that, like, once you become an institution, it's almost harder to justify getting rid of Saturday Night Live than not.
Yeah. Although it could be like so many other legacy institutions where like they're not really making money the way that they used to, and all the models have changed.
Sure,
Um, I would certainly like that would be really sad because Saturday Night Live doesn't even have any other competitors anymore. You have some pre-taped sketch shows that come up every now and then, but no one else is
yeah,
doing. Mad TV hasn't been around for a long time.
yeah.
Um,
House of
and
Buggin'. Don't forget to mention House of Buggin'.
I always do.
It only lasted one season.
Yeah. It'd be a shame to have that just fully removed.
No, the ability to actually be in line with the news cycle is very cool, and I think that there's a certain ephemeralness to it where it's almost harder to look back on certain Saturday Night Live episodes because of that. But as something that is ongoing and current, it is very fun to see, and it's really fun to imagine, much like South Park did with that little documentary behind the scenes on them of, what is it, 5 Nights to Air, 7 Nights to Air.
Yeah, one of those. I've seen it.
It's
I
great.
forget. That's how I
And
learned Bill Hader is doing double duty, just writing for South Park on top of SNL. Which, like, can you imagine having that much energy? I can't even imagine being on SNL in my 30s.
imagine how relaxed he must be show running Barry. He's like, oh, this is a breeze.
Yeah, I just got to write and later on
Star,
direct every
yeah.
episode. Yeah, but it's just one thing.
How would you think of Saturday Night Live?
Oh, I loved it. It's, I can't place it in my favorite movies of the year, but I'm similar where it's just like I mean, I love a pressure cooker, but even more in that, I love a ticking clock movie. I love anything that's just like takes place in real time, more or less.
Hmm.
I actually give a lot of excuses to movies that do that are maybe not all that good. Certainly not as good as Saturday Night. Um, I also we had the opportunity to watch the pilot before the movie, and I know a lot of you missed the movie and will see it in the future. I would encourage anyone to watch that Saturday Night Live pilots
Yeah.
because you do get like a lot of the references of what's going on, and even the costumes that people are wearing in the background that don't factor into the movie. It like really helps cement it in a real place. Because there is a sequel to this movie that already exists, and it is theoretically the premiere of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, don't have any deep insights to it. It was just a fun, good time, and just I rolled through with it. It
Yeah.
does get like a little silly saccharine for me, where it's just like, oh, we've introduced all these problems, and they're going to wrap up in a montage. But as you pointed out to me, that's the movie they're making, and that is honest to that sort of genre. It just doesn't feel honest to real life.
And I mean, I'm always, I like the idea of things being inspired by real life, but, like, dear God, don't tell me the truth and expect it to be as entertaining as a movie full of lies. Give me lies. I don't care.
Yeah.
I want emotional arcs and I want payoff.
Yeah.
And combining characters, never had a problem with it. that
No.
sort of thing. I don't
I
think
wish they
I don't
had
know
done
if
that in Oppenheimer.
did they not? I don't know.
Not really. Basically, it's just like, no, anyone who exists, they might have combined some, but like most versions of Oppenheimer would have had a cast of like 10 people and it had a cast of like 37 and everyone's famous. And honestly, my biggest problem with that movie is we're like 2/3 of the way into the movie and like A-listers keep showing up and I keep being reminded like, oh, this is a Hollywood movie. There's no like character actors. It's why is Rami Malek in the background of a scene not saying anything? It's like, oh, so he could have a little 4-sentence monologue at the end of the movie. I'm like, if this was worth his time to be silent in the background for 5 other scenes. Casey Affleck just shows up for a scene. Like it's nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't finished Megalopolis yet, like I said, but it's crazy the amount of people just showing up in things because, like, honestly, some of these guys don't have that many movies left in them. And yeah, if you're given the chance to be, I don't know how old Christopher Nolan is. He's probably not that old, but like,
He's
when you get the
27.
chance, he's 27. Yeah, I mean, you get the idea, you get the chance to be in a Francis Ford Coppola movie, even if, like, you know, why would you say no?
Yeah. And Jason Schwartzman very much has that role where like he's in the movie. I don't know if he has any lines.
He's also his nephew or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
but he's just showing up. But he's still like too big for
Grandson?
the
I
role
don't
that
know.
he's doing, which I couldn't tell you that character's name. I couldn't tell you his function. I couldn't even tell you really what side he's on. It's just every now and then you're just squinting in the background and going, is that Jason Schwartzman? But we'll talk more about Megalopolis later. And I think we're going to wrap this part up and we'll play our little Is This Still Good stinger and we'll come back with a surprise guest because we don't know who's agreed yet. Welcome back. We looked outside and we saw Benji wandering around, so we decided to tag him in and talk about a few more movies, including a follow-up to an episode he was a part of. How you doing, Benji?
Doing all right. You know, the holidays are here, so surviving the holidays as usual. Is it going to be Krampus? Will it be a zombie apocalypse? Who knows? But we'll get through it all somehow.
Well, I have actually put some sports betting on Krampus. You've always got a brain for this sort of thing. Did you notice any kind of specific trends in movies this year? Anything that kind of struck you as...
Oh, trends. I mean, you know, it's interesting. I think we see ourselves in this sort of independent fervor. I think the indies have done really well. With even now, like the Luke Guadagnino movie Queer that just came out. But like Substance made like a ton of money for movie, and I think that's something that's interesting. I think studio stuff is just always like a mad dash of just crank them out, and then we all like express our opinions. But in the end, everything that pretty much the studio's been producing, like if it's a genre film, has been pretty entertaining. There's never been really anything that's been like, oh man, like that was just like too. I mean, like besides Borderlands, I think Borderlands is probably the worst thing I've seen.
Fortunately, it's already faded from our memories.
I think it was designed that way. Like I remember going to like how I design my letterboxes. I don't tend to, if it's not something I liked, I will not put the like button, but I'll just say watched. That was definitely one of the more negative experiences. I just was like, man. But you know, I rewatched Thanksgiving. I think Eli Roth's gonna be okay, everybody, even though it might have put him in director jail no matter what.
Thanksgiving was a fun one. I was pretty surprised at how well that held together.
If he could do more like the first 20 minutes, that Black Friday stuff is great.
It's great.
And then the rest of the movie is pretty. It's fun, but that's just like, oh man, that's because I watched it with Cabin Fever this past week, and I feel like those first 20 minutes was back to like kind of his Cabin Fever kind of humor.
Yeah, I think my biggest criticism would be of it that just like it kind of suffers from being a modern film in that they buy into the fact that cell phones exist and like, which is a thing that we've just been ignoring in modern cinema. And I don't think it really makes the world better to allow for the fact that everyone has GPSs and can reach anybody at any moment. It's just not conducive to storytelling, I feel like.
Well, I don't understand why he's not just making a bunch of knock-knocks. Like, let's get that knock-knock cinematic universe going on there.
I like Knock Knock, but it's also like a movie that doesn't feel like an Eli Roth like film. It actually feels...
I would argue it's not a real movie.
Oh, I think Keanu and Ana de Armas are amazing then. But it's
I enjoyed watching them screw.
I haven't seen the movie, but I do think they're amazing.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
My buddy's staying in the other room with me while
And
I'm
he's
gone,
screwing Keanu
and
Reeves
we
in Ana
watched.
de Armas.
No, we watched The Beekeeper a couple nights ago. And I
Woo!
bring this up because his take on it, when I asked him at the end, what did you think? He said, thank you for making me watch this, but this is not a movie.
So I don't think that's a
It's
movie.
just not a movie. He
Yeah.
doesn't need to expand on it. I get it.
They definitely earns its 1-star feel on a because it's actually there's some moments in that movie action wise it's not bad, but man,
I
like,
gave it 5 stars.
but are some people like
I
it's like
think
AI generated? It's definitely, if you want to talk about trends, that's definitely an AI generated movie at times.
no, it's very authored. It's just written by a boomer. Like 100% that movie is like boomer porn. All the villains are millennials. Like there's a lot of extra text if you just think of it as like the guy who wrote
Oh.
Ultraviolet 20 years ago and is just now blaming all of his problems on the youths.
Oh yeah, it's a Hunter Biden piece at the end. For sure. It's a Hunter Biden takeout. I'm talking about the 2 FBI agents that exist in that movie. Like,
oh yes,
I'm just like, no, they don't
That's
exist.
why it's not a movie.
They're not real human beings. No, like they literally are like Uncanny Valley. Like it gets really weird with those FBI agents. Gavin, have you seen Beekeeper?
Well, I did it, Gavin. I got us to talk about Beekeeper.
Oh
I
boy.
knew this was your trap
Yeah.
the whole time. This is the only reason we're doing a podcast, is so you can get me to talk about Beekeeper.
Yeah, I didn't know that in 2020, but I've always kind of felt it. You know, it was a movie that came out this year. We did an episode earlier this year on the 1994 Crow movie, wherein Gavin learned that I grew up as a little crow boy. Did you know this about me, Benji?
I did not know, but I was as well as a little crow boy as well. But that's I thought we'd get into
but
that.
no, like my first words were caw.
Oh, caw!
I grew up with crows
you were a
outside
crow
of my
baby.
bedroom.
You were a crow baby. You were a crow
my parents
left him in the woods.
Thought I was a crow. They thought there was a crow in the house.
Left him in the woods too long and found him raised by crows.
Yeah.
Oh, you had the whole nest and everything. You came from
much like Romulus and Remus.
But you know, Gavin didn't love that movie, and because of that, or in spite of it, also did not watch the new Crow movie that came out. But I believe he has a very important question for you, Benji.
Yes.
You went back in? Why? What are we doing here?
Are you talking?
Why?
Yeah.
Why the Crow?
I mean, for both
why
of
did
us.
you guys go see more Crow? I don't understand. To me, the Crow has not quite made itself. It hasn't bought itself enough merit for me to like. I don't even know why we're talking about it on this podcast. But continue.
No, I will agree that the question behind the Crow is less how was it and more why.
So here's the thing. I'm a big fan of the original, of course. I think 2 is underrated on just the look. I think for a best worst movie ever made, number 4, Wicked Prayer, is very high up there.
That's the one with Angel in Mexico.
Oh
right?
yeah. It's not even Crow like subplot added in. This new one is, I don't know if it's the Crow. it's entertaining enough, but it also makes you question like the ending of Beetlejuice. If I had the whole movie was just all a dream that someone came up to. I had moments of I was very entertained by this new interpretation. Again, studio audiences seem to be now more AI generated, so it feels like sometimes it's just like, wait, where are we in this? I did have a friend who saw it twice in theaters.
What?
He's a Crow boy. So
I mean,
saw it twice.
He's got to prove it.
Well, I think for him was this sort of like,
I can't imagine watching it twice.
I mean,
it's not even the best like Bill Skarsgård revenge movie to come out this year.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we have Nosferatu is also the Crow. Like this is a a
Oh, I
rare
was talking
moment.
about Boy Kills World that at least had
Oh,
like
that was this year.
style
That
behind
that
it. Yeah.
talk about another movie that like the trailer looked fun, and then you see it and you're like, okay, well, that
Oh,
that
see, that
happened.
works for me, but I get it. I get why people don't watch. I don't get why people didn't go to see it, to be honest.
Um, I think
I guess it
promoting.
doesn't have any IP behind it. Yeah.
I don't think there was
I don't know.
very
I
well
watched it on
really
Hulu
promoted.
like last week and
Oh,
definitely exceeded my
oh, I
expectations.
saw it in the theaters. I definitely, but there's definitely, I think promoting it was not as much as The Crow was, because I went to like a goth night like a week before I saw The Crow at
Yeah.
a club in LA, and they were just giving out free passes to the not the opening night, but just sort of like, hey, it's coming out in a week, and they also should have I couldn't find it. Should have worn my Crow shirt. They were just handing out new Crow shirts.
Just a
And
shirt made of crows.
it was actually just said The Crow, and it was all white, and then there was on the back was the eyes that Sarsgaard has at the end. So,
In the back, it just says the other one.
yeah, um, yeah, a very, very, very strange film that in the end, not the worst thing in the world, but
Mhm.
also a movie
I
that makes
don't.
you question. So,
Yeah, I don't hate it. I just think a lot of the choices it made are wrong, and why is the
Well,
oh yeah,
question
there's a
I
lot of just
have. Like
why
if you're
going
gonna do
on.
The Crow, like I'm always torn between because I want you to change things if you're gonna do like there's definitely no point in just doing the same movie again.
Tell
Uh,
that to
but,
Disney,
but
but
like
go ahead.
what they add to the lore, well, I have told that
They
to
never listen.
Disney.
Yeah,
They do not.
The first Omen's great until that last IP moment. I feel like really just rips it out.
Well,
That's
let
a
me
very
ask you,
Disney.
so having not seen The Crow, this is a reboot, full-on reboot, right? Or is it a Lego sequel?
Oh, it's definitely not in the same
Okay.
world by any means. I mean,
Uh,
well, I mean,
it's
you
it
could make an
never is
argument, but the movie's
defined.
not making the argument.
Now,
Yeah,
It's never
as
really
yeah, it could
defined at
be. If you
all.
want to write your own
as a
canon.
movie that's had, how many people have played The Crow so far?
Well, including the TV show,
5, I'm gonna say. Yeah,
6. Mark Damascus is
yeah, I guess it'd be 6 now.
yeah, is
So,
and
and
that's
go ahead.
I was
Well,
gonna say there's also like a really good like student film that exists on YouTube I've been meaning to watch that reappeared during this whole like August Crow screenings that I guess that
That's what they were calling it.
so I mean there's
Summer of
something
Crow.
Summer of Crow. Hey, you know what? We gotta fly. You gotta fly sometimes. So,
Yeah, but like
um,
the '90s movie is like a very straightforward like revenge story with the angle that just like he's brought back and he's unkillable, and this one is just like they actually kill him and he keeps coming back and he has to go to like the Crow realm and talk to
yeah,
an old guy each time. I'm just like, what are we doing? There are only 2 action sequences in the movie.
wow.
There are
yes,
2.5.
that's another strange one with it is
See
like
them both in the trailers.
how the action is like it goes like it's a full on John Wick rip off when it gets the action,
Yeah,
and then the cutting off the heads like sequence. It just goes so over the top to a point where it just it's like
yeah.
I've never seen this in any Crow movie, and the Crow goes some funny places like City of Angels, with the Deftones playing while a man is eaten by crows
Well, I guess
very
that was my
rapidly.
question is
Um,
like, so for a series that I didn't feel like continuing after the first movie, it sounds like you guys both still found something in most of the sequels. Would you have
Uh, Benji did.
would you have been happier?
no, three has always been the worst one because it feels like we need to just keep this going. Miramax, Weinstein rights
Would you have been
deal.
happier if
Oh
this
yeah.
was 5? Or was this one that justified being a reboot?
I mean, they're all kind of
Okay.
reboots.
Yeah, they all reboot themselves because of the
Yeah.
lead guy died.
Well,
Literally.
yeah. I mean, and that's part of the reason I was asking
I
about
mean,
how many folks have played The Crow.
yeah.
Okay.
So one thing I do need to look up is if he was still Eric Draven, because my favorite thing about the Crow is like everyone's got a Crow pun name. He's just
is
Eric.
he
They
is
don't say his
Eric.
last name.
He
Okay.
is yeah he is Eric Draven. Like so, this is
Yeah.
in some ways its own remake. I don't know. It's funny. I say it's like a Canadian movie remake. It's like
It's the Canadian Crow.
it's off. Well, it's clearly like they're in
Canadian,
like
yeah.
they're in British Columbia, like the whole time.
The Crownadian? Is that what you said? Yeah, it was shot in Vancouver.
Mhm.
Vancouver.
Anyway,
But yeah, like there's the villain is like I don't know what Danny Houston is. He's a great actor. And he's just
I mean, he's
totally
just doing a
wasted.
Danny Houston villain role
I
where
mean,
he's maybe made a pact with the devil and he has to feed him souls, and the only thing that can defeat him is a little crow boy. I don't know. The movie's making questionable decisions. I don't hate all of them. I actually really love some of them. But the one that I can't forgive is just how it's paced, and like the choice to just have like 10, 15 minutes more of like, you get it, these people love each other. I like that they gave more than like just flashbacks to the girlfriends, but
well,
literally I would say about 15 minutes too many of them. That's The Crow.
yeah,
I'm not mad at the movie, but I'm not recommending it to anyone. I definitely didn't drag Gavin to see it.
yeah. It's an experience if you're a crow boy, a crow baby.
Yeah,
Check it out. My friend saw
it
it.
is not the worst Crow movie.
No, it is not.
So the real why for me for why I saw it is because it's Rupert Sanders, and I'm still trying to figure out if he's a good filmmaker or not.
Fair enough.
We will be doing a Rupert Sanders movie next year.
I mean, I
Um,
do think, like, in terms of the casting, Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs are both actually people that I'm pretty impressed by when I've seen them in
Yeah.
things. So the casting,
They're very
yeah,
charming
the
together.
casting was strong. The fact was, it was a Crow movie and it didn't really justify itself in the trailer for me. So,
Fair.
I don't know.
Well, let's
Yeah.
fly this free bird on out. So
That was The Crow. It's the unofficial tagline of the podcast. It's one of the movies.
in a year that's actually been really solid for entertainment. So
Oh, there sure were a lot of the movies this year.
Yeah.
Another one of the movies, Gavin, I hope you saw this one. You know, they made more Alien movies this
Sure
year.
did. Well, one of them.
We did
one
a
of them,
podcast
but
about one.
Yeah.
Benji was on it. Was there only one Alien movie?
I think
this
so.
year?
TV show still
For
forthcoming.
the Alien
supposedly.
franchise.
That's right. There's an Alien Romulus. We're on track.
There is an Alien
Yeah,
Romulus.
no, Alien Romulus.
We got so many Rome movies, but only one Romulus.
Yeah. I mean, supposedly it's getting a sequel. I wonder if it will be Remus.
Hope so.
Probably.
It's probably called.
Alien Augustus. This was from the director of Evil Dead, which is a movie that I, didn't particularly love. I think I owe a rewatch based on how much I liked Romulus. This was a really good time. This is up there for Alien movies for me.
I mean, I definitely think you've been too hard on the Evil Dead movie.
Probably.
Which is not the top of my
But I mean,
memory.
and I loved Rise, which is a different director. And that's apparently getting a sequel too. Some of these movies I'm not sure, like, it's not that I don't want to see more of it, like I do, but I almost kind of wish these people are so talented that I wish they were doing other things rather than like what I'd consider safe, because the versions that they've entered into it haven't always felt the safest. In terms of Evil Dead
Sure.
Rise, I think actually does take that franchise into new places. And I would like to see what else that director would do outside of the Evil Dead franchise. That being said,
Well, did you like Don't Breathe?
it was pretty good.
Okay. Would you like it if they set it in space?
yeah, that's literally what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
good.
It's
I got no
I don't even
problems
think he
with
even wrote a script. I think he just sort of inserted. There's definitely I saw it twice.
So
I
you
had
hated
a
it.
really I had a great
I saw it
really
twice.
I
Not
really
in
enjoyed
theaters,
the
but-
sound design from it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's that moment when the ship is crashing down. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of Sunshine. I forgive it for that third act.
Yeah.
Even though I think if that was more of like, I always sorry to negate on it. It's like if Sunshine's
Yeah,
third
it's
act
well overdue
was
on
the whole
podcast.
movie, I would be very happy with. Or I just also felt like the 2/3 was like, it felt like two movies battling in itself, where I would have
Yeah.
loved either version of it.
There's
But
a
I feel
nutty
like-
tonal shift going on, yeah.
Which I
And I feel
personally
like-
struggle with, but
But Romulus is very consistent, and especially for the
Yes.
last few Alien films, or now they reveal themselves as aliens, because Prometheus was like,
Right.
no, it's like it's an alien film.
Was that ever in doubt?
But I've had other people come up and be like, well, it's just like another Disney franchise IP, and I'm like, yeah, but it looked like people enjoyed making the movie and
right.
putting
It was
like
made
color
with
and light.
love.
Yeah, I will echo, the most common problems people have with Romulus, and I agree, is like there is a little bit too much like shoving the IP stuff in
Yeah.
there. Like you've got two kind of unforgivable things. One of them's just like I'm against, AI of dead people in general. I don't give a shit if their estate comes out, but also like it rarely makes real sense for the story. So to have Ian Holm come back when Lance Henriksen's still alive, like one from another movie that would have worked. I think that's pretty disgusting and gross, and I don't like watching it.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed
Yeah,
about that.
but Bishop's a good one of the good androids. Like that's the thing. It's like he's like the android that's actually good.
Which could have made it even more fun to have
Right.
rather than the shorthand of all androids are evil, having him play against type could have been fun too. I was also just like, it could have been a new person. I don't really need
Yeah.
to see.
It's also just like a model. I
Yeah.
never got the idea that like all ashes were evil and all bishops are good.
Well, and it's not even.
And we are,
Ash,
we
it's
have a
Brooke.
good android in it.
So
Yeah.
It's David and what's the other android that Fassbender played? It's David and Daniel?
I couldn't tell you.
David's
In my head, it's just Michael.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it
David
might
and
be
Michael.
Michael. I think you're right.
It's Michael. Yeah, it's like
In Covenant.
how Covenant ends almost leads up to the mix of what it is that is Romulus, which is like, protecting this weird, zygote, xenomorph thing. So I don't know. Xenogoat. The thing is that like, why not just putting Ash in there and David, Michael together? Like, I mean, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it made sense as a script wise. Like, yeah, Ash is one of the evil, like, Weyland-Yutani
Right.
androids. So it didn't really
but
too much.
And I mean, I guess like their argument probably is that it's the right era because it's technically a prequel to the first movie. What I
No, it's in between 1 and 2, isn't it?
I mean, so to me,
Yeah.
like I quickly
So like either one of them would have
I
worked.
quickly shut that down in terms of just like I don't really care about the timeline anymore because Alien's going to be a franchise that I kind of pick and choose whatever my headcanon is, and I want a movie to.
That's
I want
fair.
these movies to really stand on their own, and I think that this is one.
Well, I think of them
that
they're all prequels to Alien Resurrection.
While this one has a lot of callbacks, and specifically to a fault, it has plenty internally. The characters themselves have enough going on that's what I get lost in. This crew that we watch is really fun. It's much more of like a teen. It feels more like a slasher movie than like a sci-fi movie in certain ways, where we're watching a crew of kids who have kid problems. Like they're sick of like the capitalistic world that they live in and they want to escape and they want to start families and like do kid stuff, it feels like. And they're a bunch of kids in space getting picked off by aliens, and it just feels much simpler than like the last few movies we've been trying to do, like these bigger world building, really getting bogged down, I would argue, in world building that I haven't really enjoyed. And this is a return to, form in terms of like, yes, when Disney jumps in and takes over a franchise, their first entry seems to be a mashup of the franchise to this point as like a recap. This is the more fun version of that than we've gotten with, I'd argue, Star Wars.
Well, I think that's something there. I think the one thing I think that the last two, the Ridley Scott ones, really, and I've even mentioned on the podcast, is that it's smart people doing really dumb things.
Yeah.
And with this one, it's like they are young, and so it's like, they're gonna make dumb decisions.
Yeah.
And they're doing the best
they're young
they
and
can.
they have high stakes even before aliens get introduced.
Yeah.
Like
they're
gonna gamble in their situations just because they don't want to go back home.
Well, they're gonna die because all their families have died in the mine. So I mean, it's like they know their fate. It's not like oh, it sucks here on this planet. Like it's like no, it's like we got what 10 more years. It's like what's
10 more years
generation
in the mine. Yeah.
Like generation beta right now that these kids are getting born now. You think about it, like you got about 20 years maybe until the planet's gonna be fucked, kind of like that. So
oh god.
Yep.
You got to go work on the mines where they could just extend your contract at any time. I really liked that part of the world building. I loved seeing like what the alien universe was like outside of a spaceship. And it's spoiler alert, it's terrible.
I mean, and I've always loved like Weyland-Yutani, the corporation. Watching that has been some of my favorite stuff in this world. in general, and to spend even more time with that, even if it's like a simplistic kind of cartoony version of evil, it's first of all weirdly relatable. Like it's just capitalism is so deeply rooted into our everyday, blatantly, that to just
Capitalism makes xenomorphs of us all, Gavin.
and to have that, it didn't feel overwrought or anything to me. It just felt like finally we get to kind of laugh at a version of ourselves and.
A lot of this movie does feel graceful and unforced. You know what did feel really forced that took a whole star away from my review was having a character who is not Sigourney Weaver, was not around during that line, say, "Get away from her, you bitch." That is some unforgivable Disney ass shit.
Yeah, that was really rough. That was by far
my least
favorite part of that movie.
But it had a stutter. Yeah. It had a stutter moment.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, and it's one of the things that could be saved easy on set or in post, and people made the decisions all the way to choose fan service over what actually makes sense. Because I would argue that still works if he just says, "Get away from her." And I know that they're winking at me, but then he says, "You bitch."
No,
and he says it in an annoying way.
And he was such a fully
funny.
Formed...
It's the android that says it too.
Yes. And he's such a fully formed character who's like adorable, and we fall in love with him like so easily in this movie. The performance is so strong. Doing the dual character thing works great. It's such a strong
real Star Wars bullshit.
And that moment is so garbage.
I will say the audience of that Burbank 16 did love it both times, that line.
Yeah,
they did get up and cheer.
And I don't want them to dumb down my experience because they're happy with what gets tossed to them at the circus.
I mean, well, that's half the film industry right there. It's like you want to work in the circus, but you want to make
movie has enough of this.
Yeah,
I don't know. You can do both of those things and respect the audience. I truly believe
we
that.
Still get a bunch of acid blood's a good time.
Oh god, that 0G sequence is premium.
The X-ray birth scene, fucking fantastic.
Yeah,
there's a lot to love. I really enjoyed this movie for giving those two big blunderful moments.
And unfortunately, I am very hard on movies that I think are almost great, but have like specific things that if I can see how to quote unquote fix a movie, I'm going to be a lot more difficult. I'm just like, oh, just don't have that scene. Have Triangle of Sadness end one shot earlier and it's a perfect movie. Like shit like that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's just like, oh no, your movie ended 5 minutes ago and we're still here. That's the most common one.
Well, but Triangle of Sadness is a filmmaker's vision. This is the popcorn.
If that's what he wanted to do, I just think it was a bad choice.
This is the pop. Oh yeah.
At least it wasn't like a studio exec deciding what I want. That was sometimes the filmmaker makes the wrong decision with their own film as well. I know how arrogant that is.
I will say the popcorn tasted just as sweet in Triangle of Sadness.
I mean, the thing is that I think the star crash at the end, beautiful. Also, if you're a big fan of Dead Space, seeing that kind of those images that
it was very Dead Space.
Yeah, I mean, I really was happy with that, especially since Callisto Protocol didn't go so well.
Yeah. I have friends disappointed with the movie because it's not close enough. Alien Isolation, which they love. Like multiple people have said this. I'm like, right, but they're not actually adapting that game, man.
Yeah, it's not Ripley's
It's
daughter.
not fair to be mad about.
Yeah.
But apparently that's one of the best examples of like what the Alien franchise can do, and everyone kind of stands for that game. I'm not going to play it because I don't like getting scared in video games. Movies don't scare me. Video games terrify me. I couldn't make it through Dead Space. Why don't they give you a flashlight? I'd be less scared if you've just always had a flashlight. How dare you, developers?
Makes me want to go play some Silent Hill.
Alien Romulus. I think it slots in as my third, maybe fourth favorite Alien movie, which I suppose makes it middle of the pack, but like it's pretty good.
It might be my second favorite, to be honest. It's a very good time.
I will say that Alien Resurrection is my second after that episode.
You know, it's just funny. I remember on our episode, we gave a lot of hate to Aliens, James Cameron movie, and I'm like, that is my favorite Alien movie. What am I talking about?
It's okay.
So
you were right in the way. Neither of us care about
it. So, I mean,
it
shares with sort of, I don't know. I think I mentioned, though, like each of them, what my mood is.
Sure.
Like with this one, this is a very, like, it's very cut and dry. Like, hey, we're going in. It's a slasher. You know, same thing with like the first movie being it's a haunted house film.
Yeah.
So it finds that if you want to get some more deeper themes, go to 3. 3, I think the themes are are really tough, and that's why I think people didn't like it in the end.
Themes are tough at the expense of an entertaining movie.
And what version you watch too, because I feel like there's a certain tone that's there. I mean, but yeah, and then Resurrection's just like this one definitely falls in the Resurrection realm of like this is just a like fun gory movie.
And I think that was
I mean, it almost has the same third act.
And I think that was kind of
Oh, yeah.
charming watching this movie kind of be a love letter even to Resurrection, which I wasn't
even to
expecting.
Prometheus. Like,
okay.
Yep.
I wasn't expecting an ounce of Prometheus, and instead we got multiple ounces of black goo.
And the head.
And a little engineer baby.
And the alien head at the end is
engineer baby.
Engineer baby. Next to the crow baby that Sage is calling.
Yeah.
Calling for.
Well, the engineer is Gavin's favorite creature design. So it's a podcast, Gavin. You can't just shake your head. You got to explain the joke that I'm doing.
Not a fan of the engineer. That's the bit.
Okay.
But were you a fan of Romulus?
Yes. Well, speaking of goo.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That's a good way.
For purposes of this podcast and as an excuse to talk about it, I'm pretending that they remade The Fly this year and it's called The Substance. In reality, they just did a body horror movie that has some elements. Just to clarify, in no way do I think that they have ripped off or done anything vis-a-vis Fly. If I caught it earlier, we would have at least remastered and re-released The Fly.
Well, I would like to add on.
You're gonna wind up. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Demi Moore's The Substance.
This is actually a spinoff of The Shining, and it's all about the woman in the bathtub. You think about it.
Ooh.
Not following. Go deeper.
So, as Jack Torrance enters room 237.
Yep.
There's a beautiful young woman
in the tub,
isolated, and then she all of a sudden, turns into the most horrific.
You look at the reflection,
Mm-hmm.
And the spell is broken.
And so I'm like, what is that story? And where she lives in 237, she's in room 237 because there is so much shining going on in The Substance. But not
is
in the
that
sense
the apartment that she's in Demi Moore? Is that 237?
I don't think it's officially said. I might have to go back, but I feel like in a lot of ways the building that she's in is in some sort of weird LA, high rise that, and that's essentially to me, in a lot of ways, is because it takes place primarily in one room the whole time and in a bathroom and a hidden bathroom on top of that.
Yeah.
That hallway too at the television studio is pretty clearly a Shining reference, I feel like.
Okay. Well, I think even when you get the Toxic Avenger ending gore going on, like the Dennis Quaid character being like essentially like a not Jack Torrance, but like you've always been here. We've always wanted the women to smile. Women smile everywhere. It's that last shot, of the party that's in The Shining. I mean, there's so much that's there, but it's not. But it's an original film by a filmmaker who I loved her first movie.
Yeah,
I saw that like 4 times in theaters. I'm surprised I didn't see this.
Really strong. Yeah.
And that's Revenge, right?
Revenge, and there's very much similar themes. And she talk about someone who really knows to make a third act go a third act. Like Revenge is a very much like if you love revenge and specifically rape revenge movies of the 70s, and then where that third act goes between and it again takes place primarily at a house in the middle of nowhere, but it becomes just like American Psycho meets you could picture film Street Savages and stuff like that. But and this one is like this is Toxic Avenger meets A Star Is Born essentially.
I gotta push back on because you've praised the third act, and I definitely think this is a movie that just I would have been good with it ending 20 minutes early. I thought it had a great exit point. There's a moment where she puts in that last bit of the substance. But I just I didn't sign up for the Toxic Avenger movie. Yeah. And I get that it's a good time. I think it brought it down.
But then it becomes it's street trash. It's where the star it's.
When she puts that last in one, we hear the screen and it goes to black, and I'm like, awesome, roll credits, and then we get a lot more movie.
And this is a movie that won me over so hard that I was just so ready to keep going. And when they're like,
And I'm
"Here's more
jealous of
movie,"
that.
I'm just like, "Fuck yeah, man, let's go. Let's live here. This is great. I'm moving in." And to me, like it went to another level of fun. I would have been happy if it had ended earlier, but I'm so happy it didn't.
Yeah, because I didn't know the running time was kind of long on it for an elevated horror movie. The elevated horror movie, you know, the runtime is like an Ari Aster. You know, it's a 2.5 hour film now, folks.
Oh
You know,
God.
Yeah.
I love Midsommar.
I think part of it is that's what took it
I
from
love
being
2 of Ari Aster's movies.
that's just what it took it from being a heightened Black Mirror episode. Because at first it was just a really strong Black Mirror episode, and the
Mhm.
ending is what makes it feel much more unique. And it's less forgettable. And that's part of the reason for its success is just that it's stronger than a Black Mirror episode. Because without it, I think
Yeah.
it is just a really good Black Mirror episode.
I think yeah.
I think that's enough for me. I don't know.
But she just
Because like Don't Blink was also kind of like that, and it's like that's
And
enough.
it's not getting the buzz
Um,
that the substance is
but don't-
getting.
but
Yeah, no, people are really doctor sleeping on. Sorry, I've been trying to figure out how to work that in. on Don't Blink.
Don't Blink just doesn't go crazy enough. Is what I think is in the end. It's sort of
No, I think it's rooted in something a lot more real, which is not a thing I'm going to hold against The Substance, but it's definitely why Don't Blink was one of my favorite movies.
I really
this year.
enjoyed it too.
The Substance is a movie that I think is good, and I don't really talk about to people.
yeah. I think Don't Blink for me was one of the best audiences experiences where I feel like everyone was in for the movie. But when we all left the theater, we were just I think we all was like, oh, okay, that was a good one, and then we just kind of like lost. It was almost like everyone who experienced the movie, we just kind of forgot about it, kind of thing. But I remember.
I mean, that sticks with me. I was pretty shook by that movie.
I mean, it's a good movie. It's just I think a lot of folks, from the audience reaction to where that movie didn't do anything, I was very surprised. I thought like this is.
They should have called it Pussy Island.
They should have called it Pussy Island. Working title.
The starfish that cuts out the.
They could have called it The Substance.
Yeah,
Substance Island. But yeah, but it's great to see Demi Moore in something where I think she's always
great.
tried to make something. I mean, it's gone back and forth. There's some Demi Moore performances that are not so good.
Yep.
And there's some great Demi
She's
Moore.
not great in Landman.
Oh boy. But I think like striptease, like she tried G.I. Jane, like it was like she was trying to be like, hey, like I'm actually an actor. I'm not just a model, like a pretty face kind of thing. But I think this one, I've been also Margaret Qualley, but Margaret Qualley has this very much like, oh, this person's unhinged. And it's funny because she's like the daughter of Annie McDowell, who's like one of the most like unhinged people ever on screen. Like this, like more of like oh, she's just so nice. Groundhog Day.
She is. My ex-girlfriend grew up with Margot Qualley in North Carolina. North Carolina. And she always had like really nice things to say about Margot. And for context, my ex-girlfriend hates everyone. So she might just be a really good actor.
I mean, but from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
she's choosing really
nice
good roles. Yeah.
Yeah. She's getting to work with like really interesting people. I'm sure it's blessed as an actor. She had a Coen Brothers movie that came out earlier. She's had a hell of a year, even if she's been in multiple movies that I did not like, which Substance is not one of those.
Dreadway Dolls is, it exists in that weird. It's a Coen left of Coen film.
Yeah. I like that more than Kinds of Kindness.
I like Kinds of Kindness.
It's like the Jesus.
Why wasn't it a TV show? Why was that not a 3-part miniseries? Why did that deserve to be a fucking movie?
I liked it.
Oh, Kinds of Kindness?
Yeah, I was so ready because like each act was so long that I thought like, oh, maybe I have this wrong. It's actually a 2-part thing, and then the second part finished. I'm like, cool, and then a third part started, and I'm like, fuck you, Bo was afraid of me.
I disagree.
But
okay.
I disagree.
Well, I don't hate it as much as Bo was afraid, but like I was pretty ready to leave by the second one, and I had to sit through a third one. And if it had been a miniseries, I could have chosen that things. There's nothing really connecting them beyond that, so like it should have been a miniseries. 100% feel that. Gavin, it's fine if it doesn't bother you, but I'm still right here.
I feel like it's a cosmic movie. That's what it is. There's very much a cosmic thing that's going on with those few stories.
Yeah. Well, I would have liked them to Cloud Atlas together. Then.
Well, let's not go there. I mean, it's definitely, if you haven't seen it, seek it out.
No, I've already recommended
The
The Substance like 3 times on this podcast.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Hope it gets all the awards.
That would I'm
I hope it gets some recognition.
just to talk about it for like just a half second. This is going to be a weird awards year. I'm curious. I think Wicked will probably do very well.
I don't think that'll be like, it might get Best Picture nomination.
I think it's going to do really well. I hope
yeah.
The Substance comes away with something.
I mean, Makeup's the obvious one. Like, that's usually the only one that these sort of things get any recognition.
It might get a Best
for,
Supporting.
Occasionally, the horror movie gets a nom.
That'll probably go to Wicked.
I wouldn't be mad at any of that. But like, I would hold your hopes about even a successful horror movie of this type getting any recommendation. I don't think I Saw the TV Glow will.
Alien Romulus isn't getting anything.
Benji, thanks so much for stopping by. Where can we find your pluggables? What you got?
Well, I'm still part of doing another Hole in the Head Fest, which started this week online. It's San Francisco's longest running horror and genre film festival. But I'm hosting several shows in the next few weeks live at the Balboa Theater and the 4-Star, including, I will just say it, Leprechaun on VHS, which you can also get on our Patreon afterwards. So that will be available. Check it out on Warp Dimension TV Patreon, or you can look me up at Movie Hopping Benji or Warp VHS. We also have a Christmas episode coming to the Balboa. If you have anyone in San Francisco out there, we're doing National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation on VHS on December 21st. So.
Some of those are in the future. Some of them are in the past. So
they will be all available on our Patreon.
There you go.
Warp Dimension TV.
So, give Benji money and stick around for a little bit, and we'll be right back with Adam Boyer. All right, welcome back. We talked Adam into hanging out with us and discussing our incredible Thanksgiving box office with Wicked and Gladiator and that other one we're not interested in talking about. Adam Boyer, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Adam, aside from the 2 movies that I just mentioned, it sounds like you're the only person in America that saw Robert Zemeckis' Here.
I did. I saw Here in a pretty empty theater, like the week it came out. And I don't know, how do you want me to just dive into it?
Honestly, yeah, it is a movie that I will see eventually. I intended to see it in theaters, but it just came and went. And I chose Juror number 2 because I had just heard it just like, oh, they're burying this. This is going to be in and out of theaters in 2 weeks or whatever. And it actually stayed longer than Here did.
Yeah, I will say in defense of Robert Zemeckis' Here, which is a very flawed movie. It is extremely cinematic, more so than I would say probably Juror number 2. Like, we used to just constantly
can say that. We won't fight you on it.
Yeah, we used to make movies like Juror number 2 that would be, your Grisham thrillers that would be in the box office constantly and would do well. You'd see them at a matinee or whatever. It feels like you can watch it on a plane or HBO Max. No shade to Clint Eastwood. I really enjoyed the movie. But Here is a movie that I think a lot of people saw it in theaters and hated it. Or I should say, the people who saw it in theaters hated it. But the best chance you have it, like that movie working for you, is in a theater because it's all one shot. It's basically like a big diorama. I really have no idea why Robert Zemeckis, who loves 3D and is very good at 3D, didn't make it in 3D, because it really would have felt like you're literally a fly on the wall if you could see like the full depth of this space. I think if you tried to watch that movie at home, you would fall asleep within like 20 minutes because without anything to like cut or without the camera moving, like I feel like your attention would just get pulled elsewhere. Where if you're in a theater, you kind of have to give yourself to it, for better or worse. That said, the movie, it's a very clunky script. It's very broad in all the ways that Robert Zemeckis has been very broad lately. Yeah, I call it a Zemeckis joke or something Picasso, but there's like which is a reference to Titanic where Billy Zane says like something Picasso won't amount to a thing.
Yeah, I've heard there's a lot of Forrest Gumping in this.
Robert Zemeckis fucking loves the something Picasso joke, and he does it at every turn, and it happens a few times. You get someone saying, you know what, in a year's time no one's gonna even remember my father, Benjamin Franklin.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wait, how does that? Okay, sorry.
This, yeah.
You're raising more questions for me than answers currently.
Okay, yeah. So I
Um,
guess I should explain kind of what the movie is about, because
Mhm.
it's all set in one room or one
Right.
space and time before the room is even built. And you kind of watch it progress from like Paleolithic era to indigenous people to American settlers to like a very rich black family in COVID times. And let's just say Robert Zemeckis handles COVID very delicately and not at all very dumbly.
Mhm.
Yeah, so one of the little mini vignettes, it's mostly about like Tom Hanks and his family, but there are also a lot of vignettes kind of wrapping everything around. And one of the vignettes, which I guess is from the graphic novel, is about the son of Benjamin Franklin who lives across the street and is a redcoat who hates that his father is a terrorist, which is
Wow.
kind of funny, but also it's not done. I don't know. I think if you
Wait, so
give
this
your
is based on a graphic novel?
Yeah,
Is the
exactly.
graphic
Yeah.
novel just the same picture over and over again?
Yeah, that seems really hard to read.
Well, they do a lot of kind of like little cutouts. I've seen some photos of the graphic novel. I've not read it, but they do a lot of little cutouts. So, like it's a collage of, stacked images. So you can see like, okay, here's like a modern TV over where, the radio in the 30s is, or, here's
Mhm.
where, what I think is fun about the
Oh,
movie
interesting. So like collage art,
yeah. And Gavin, as a cinematographer, I think you'd be interested in
the comic.
how they Zemeckis kind of like layers out like picture in picture kind of thing.
Okay.
And
No,
the
I
way
mean, I was already wanting to see this movie. It was kind of a bummer that it came and went like it felt like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really got dumped. I mean, I think if the movie was better, they would have saved it for Christmas, because there's no Christmas movie to take your dad to, and this is a Christmas movie to take your dad to.
Nosferatu.
I
Yeah.
actually, I might go see. I might go
Hell
see
yeah.
Nosferatu with my dad.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so Zemeckis does all these little cutouts so you can jump around through time. So it's really interesting how it like edits between scenes without ever like literally cutting to a new setup, new location, because it's all the same angle.
Right.
Spoilers until like the very, very end. Which I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have. You kind of knew it was going to happen, like like sitting down in the theater, like I bet he's going to move the camera at the very end, and he does. And when it does, you're like, "Fuck you, Zemeckis," but also you're sobbing. I think the movie is not good, but it's a really interesting swing. I think done with a more subtle hand, it could be something really, really profound and special. It reminded me a lot of Cloud Atlas, but like
Sure.
if Cloud Atlas was like confined to one space.
Cloud Atlas was even more of a gimmick.
Yeah, but just also instead of like people playing the same cast, with makeup, it's like you've got the de-aging. So you see like an 18-year-old Tom Hanks that looks okay. I would say
Is that like
it
a Polar Express, or is it like an Irishman?
That was a while ago.
It's more of an Irishman, I would say, but you get some of the things where it's like, hi, I'm 18-year-old Tom Hanks, and my back is hunched like I'm 65-year-old Tom Hanks, and no amount of like face smoothing is gonna fix that.
Yeah.
But there are fun moments in it. I think some vignettes are better than others. I will say, not shockingly, Eric Roth and Robert Zemeckis do not handle the subplots about the non-white characters very well.
Well, that is shocking.
Like we get so much about Tom Hanks's family, then there's this black family living in like COVID times in the same house, and they get
Were they even in the trailer?
no, and then the only story they get is just like there's a very long speech where the father has to explain to his son, hey, there's how you don't get shot by the police.
Okay.
So Robert Zemeckis is an ally.
Yeah.
But like that's their one scene, and then their nurse dies of COVID, or their maid dies of COVID. But like that's the only characterization they get. Like they literally might as well just be called Black Family. And same thing with like there's like kind of a romance with like some indigenous people, and yeah, there's just like, well, here's two natives who fall in love, and then one of them gives birth, and then they die. Whereas meanwhile, it's like we spend a lot of time with Paul Bettany and Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, really fleshing them out, making them feel as people. What their hopes and dreams are, and all this sort of stuff. But the movie doesn't have time to do that for a lot of the people at the periphery. I think it's a very hit or miss movie. There's one subplot that sounds really dumb that I kind of think is the best part of the movie, which is it's about the guy who invented the lazy boy and his hot wife. Like there's just like a real like Josh Gad type. who was just like kind of a schlubby guy who eats spam sandwiches served to him by his hot wife, and they fuck all the time on the lazy boy that he's building, and then like they sell the lazy boy and then they move out of the house.
Before you told me that they fucked on it, that's where I was hoping this was going.
Well, it
So-
It was almost called the fuck boy.
Yeah. Well, no, it's the Zemeckis joke I'm talking about, where they have to do a whole thing where it's supposed to be called the Relaxy Boy, and then there's the scene where it's like, well, the people who want to buy it, they want to change the name to what? The Lazy Boy? I like the old name better. It's
Drop the.
it's a lot of jokes like
Just
that.
lazy boy.
Okay.
And then like heart-wrenching stuff about like, hey, here's what it's gonna be like when you watch your dad slowly die. And it's a lot of like It's a Wonderful Life-esque stuff about like, hey, those dreams you had, you're never gonna get around to them, and then you're also gonna die. And your wife is gonna get Alzheimer's, and
Well, this sounds like some meaningless bullshit that I am completely here for. It sounds like they made a movie just for
you're
Sage.
here for it.
I'm here for it. Yeah, I wasn't gonna lean on that. Anyway, that was the Here report with Adam Boyer. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that, in a world where we're really taking chances and
Yeah.
reaching into playing it safe with IP like here.
Yeah. No, I will say,
Based on a graphic novel.
Yeah, based on the graphic novel here.
I would love it if Robert Zemeckis made like 4 more of this kind of movies, even if they're terrible and I hate them, over him making like The Witches or Pinocchio. Like you're 80, you have all the money in the world. Do something wild that other people wouldn't get the green light for.
I guess he
So
has been
I respect
playing
the
an
swing.
IP recently in a way that's kind of disappointing because Zemeckis is, known for, he's made a lot of good movies, but he's also made a lot of wild swings and, even just that weird like mo-capped Christmas Carol movie, I would argue has more value than whatever the hell he was doing with Pinocchio.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten he did a Pinocchio.
He
Everyone
did a
did.
Pinocchio. He did the other one.
He did the bad one.
Yeah.
Oh, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the season where people got glicked all over the place. Is that how the people are saying, or are they saying glicking?
Oh, all the kids in my neighborhood have been just walking down the street, clicking it up.
Okay.
I'm glad this wasn't really a thing anyone tried to make happen, but if anyone is unaware, that's this year's Barbenheimer, which did, like, one thing I will give credit for, we had the best Thanksgiving box office of all time. Now, most of that's Moana 2 bullshit, a movie that was cut from a TV show into a movie, and I have no interest in seeing. But you know what other movie we didn't plan on seeing, but actually all did? Wicked. I had no intention of ever seeing this movie.
Something has changed within me.
And then I was back in Alaska. We just wanted a movie to watch. I'd already seen Gladiator 2, and my mom rolled out a lot of other movies like Venom 3.
Last Dance.
Yeah, there were a lot of things I had up in line above Wicked, but we went and saw Wicked.
I too took my mom to go see Wicked. I mean, my mom was a huge Wizard of Oz fan, and so she was stoked. We went to the Grand Lake Theater where I asked her when the last time she'd been there. She said she hadn't gone since I took her on her birthday to see The Hateful Eight, the roadshow experience.
That's like 2016.
Yeah, she was
Huh.
like, yeah, last time we were here, you brought me to this movie that was really good, but it had a lot of murder in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, she loved it. My sister really enjoyed it. I'd actually seen the stage play with my sister. I thought the movie was too much movie. I got a little overwhelmed,
It's a lot of
and
movie.
it's so much movie.
It is, part one is longer than the entirety of the Broadway musical.
Yeah, and I like Popular's it's a banger of a song.
Popular's
The rest of the music to me, it's not quite stand out enough for me to really get caught up in.
Yeah, I don't think the music in this is good. Like, there's one or two songs, but like as a fun time musical, just like, wow, this could also have something to do with the character or the plot, but instead we're really just going to stop and sing about magic.
I mean, I will say, like, what's his name? The Prince showing up, that whole bookstore or the library dance stuff is pretty fun.
Yeah, those are fun.
I watched a nice little breakdown of that. The animal subplot feels like it's just starting to get going.
Mhm.
I guess that's all part 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, that's how you could extend part 2 into a full movie.
I had to confirm with my girlfriend, who's a musical theater nerd, that stuff is in the show, because that's the only stuff that felt like padding to me.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But yeah, I guess that's all in the show, so I assume it's building towards something.
I wasn't expecting to like Wicked. I think I mostly did. Here's the thing: is like Wicked is a movie that would annoy me if it wasn't just so much fun. This is obviously the same director as In the Heights, which is what I keep comparing it to because I think that's a much better movie. I think that is much more fun, certainly more meaningful. But like. So Wicked does a lot of Marvel Star Wars type things where it's like, it's a prequel. Let's find out how she got her hat and how she got her broomstick. I'm like, she was born with green skin. Do we need an explanation of any of this? Her getting an ugly hat and made fun of at a prom is the dumbest thing I've seen in a movie this year.
Sure, that
They
is
pull
the
it
whole
back. It leads
point
to the
of
best scene in the movie, but like,
Yeah.
really you got there with like, oh, what if we make her wear this ugly witch's hat? Witches exist. Do witches' hats not exist?
No, they just
It's-
wear pinstripe suits.
This came out.
They all
on
look
the
very
same-
dapper.
I think like the what's the name? Cinderella's like sisters also have like books by either the same author or it came out in the same time. There was a lot of that kind of taking something that was kind of this Disney style like children's thing and doing the the evil stepsister is also a person too. Let's hear her story. The Wicked Witch wasn't always wicked. And this was one of the stronger ones that I remember
Like
of the time.
Maleficent.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's a fun concept.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Unfortunately, like you have to do the hat stuff and the ruby slipper stuff is just a big it's what it has to be because those are the cultural touchstones that tie it to the actual IP that it's connected to.
I don't think the witch does. I don't think witch hat is symbolically Wizard of Oz. I just think that's a witch thing, and you could just have her either always wear the hat or not wear the hat. I don't think that matters. I don't think you need to have like a big introduction. It reminded me of Solo, where they go, "Oh, so you have no people? We'll call you Solo." Just like,
Sure.
are you kidding
Well,
me?
that's trash.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is not any better than that. I will
I
say
would-
on the
I
flip
would
side,
argue-
like I'm having enough fun that I established that it doesn't bother me the way it does in other movies, but I have to acknowledge that it is the same problem.
I would say it's a similar problem. They're attempting at least to tie the hat into a betrayal that leads into friendship and something that is going to be a touchstone of, wow, let me pick on my roommate and then turn that into, oh shit, this person's actually really trying to be a friend to me.
Okay.
And the hat becomes a symbol of, what their relationship was before it turned.
But what if you were, let's say you had built a magical city that is the height of civilization, and then you've decided to like add some sort of road to it. Would you ask the closest person, what color should we make this road? I've done it, which apparently, Adam, you were telling me this part is not in the musical, or
No,
you
that
had
was new
doubts?
to me too, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Dumb.
I hate that.
that was almost like so absurd. It was like kind of like the original like Chris Lord, Phil Miller when they're doing some of those jokes in Solo. I think were meant to be jokes, and then it got
Yeah.
Wait,
pared
that was
down.
Lord and Miller?
They
I
were
forgot
It
supposed
was
to do
until they got kicked off, and then it was
Yeah.
Ron Howard,
So
Adam's favorite director.
So at least I think like some of those jokes in Solo were meant to be kind of like we're poking fun at that trope, and then like the joke, the context
Ron
of that
Howard's
joke
too sincere.
got pared away, and so you're just left with the thing presenting it straight. And like here with what color should we make this brick road? I'm like, that's almost kind of like we're making fun of like prequel nonsense.
You
You do
got
have Jeff
what's his
Goldblum
face.
selling
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Also, I will say-
that's interesting.
There's a video I saw on YouTube with like the production designer explaining like the sets, and like incredible, and like that scene where they talk about the Yellow Brick Road, like they just like built that like into the actual sets with like all one big
Yeah.
thing, and like it was very interesting like seeing how much like physical labor just went into this
Yeah.
movie to make
No,
things
it's-
that go by in an instant. And like I saw this movie in 4DX, and like it's all so overwhelming. You're just like, oh, that's a thing that's there, that's a thing that's there, but you kind of forget like someone had to just like plan like, okay, we need to build this like weird diorama scene, and then Jeff Goldblum's gonna like dance a number behind this curtain, and it's gonna be I don't know, there's just a lot of like good craft on display in Wicked, which I appreciate
To be-
that.
It's I am like almost overwhelmed. It almost seems irresponsible, except for the fact that this movie is going to be fine. They're gonna get plenty of return
Oh.
on it. It's gonna be a huge hit.
No, this is the hit of the year, honestly.
And I mean, I think they kind of the fact that they are able to get 2 movies out of it also justifies that somewhat more because they're going to be able to reuse these sets. but the idea of like planting fields and fields of flowers.
Yeah, that's insane.
Building
that they planted
like
all those
basically a
tulips.
city. It's just like, it's nuts. Because we live in a time where you could do, and I'm sure they're doing a ton of VFX on top of all this practical stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
They're also
building
kind of
so much. It's wild.
I mean, how did you feel like one of the pushbacks on this movie, Gavin, is that it kind of has like a kind of gross sheen over it and like a muddied color, especially when it's a prequel, non-canonical prequel to like one of the first bright Technicolor movies. I found it pretty muddled in a way that
it's very shiny, but it is a lot of it's just so much movie that I kind of like I can't accept it into my like eyes. I start kind of just getting a little bit overwhelmed. I also, like, to be fair, I watched it in a situation where the ground like didn't look that great. It looked a little dim. I could see like the leaking of the projector onto the people in front of me. So I really kind of didn't feel like I was lost in the movie. And there was a person next to me using their cell phone. So always tough to grade a film when you're kind of stuck in the situation where you're feeling the theatrical experience in a bad way around you.
It's having worse and worse theatrical experiences every year.
Yeah, which was a bummer.
Which we'll get to that in the next movie.
But I also was in a theater full of like excited teenage girls who like my sister, the one complaint she had about our theatrical experience was that there was girls behind us in hushed whispers, but they were excited hushed whispers. So I was kind of more down with that in terms of just like people were there and they were excited. So I did enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, I do think it is funny that we are three guys in our like 30s talking about this movie that seems like it was designed in a lab to be catnip for 12-year-old like slightly overweight or like acne-ridden teenage girls. Like,
wow,
that's really punching down. But
I don't want to punch down on any. No, but I just like the whole like you're talking about like.
Okay,
I'm just saying like whatever kind of thing that you as a 12-year-old girl feel self-conscious about.
Yeah, sure. Elphaba's green skin.
Yeah, Elphaba's green skin is like
especially
a
things you can't
perfect
help.
Metaphor for your teen angst. So like that's why this movie I think is going to make $1 billion, and that's why the show was so big.
Okay.
You know, my sister absolutely loved this stage show when she was younger and would like play the soundtrack all the time. I haven't seen how she feels about it now as like a 38-year-old or whatever.
Text her real quick just so we get a yay or nay by the end of the podcast.
Well, I'm probably going to end up like seeing the movie again when I go home for Christmas because there is nothing playing at Christmas. It's like my family is not going to go see Kraven the Hunter or Mufasa. I will stand outside in the parking lot in 20-degree Anchorage weather as opposed to seeing Mufasa. That movie looks like hot dog shit. Sorry, Barry Jenkins.
Yeah. No.
Get that paycheck, Barry.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could just chime in because I haven't really mentioned what I thought of the movie. I saw this movie in 4DX, and it was only showing at 9:45 p.m. because Moana 2 had stolen all the screens. I ended up getting to downtown LA on Thanksgiving Day too early, so I just had to walk around empty downtown LA at Thanksgiving when everything was closed. I was exhausted, and I don't know the last time you guys saw something in 4DX, but like they play this is 4DX, and they do a little tech demo before the trailers start.
Yeah.
And everyone in my theater was like, oh no, what did we do? Like I heard someone behind us just be like, we're gonna have 3 hours of this? Dear God. But like it was so kind of like overwhelming seeing it in 4DX. Like it's just like ready to fall asleep and the movie is just shaking you the whole time. So it's kind of hard to say what my objective opinions of it, but like by the time you get to the final song in 4DX, it's like spectacular. And like literally that last 5 minutes with all the bells and whistles of 4DX, like the fog's going off, the strobes going off, winds shooting in your face, the character who's flying around, I won't say who because spoilers, like when she's like
the character who defies gravity,
when she's zooming around on her broomstick or whatever, you know, like it feels like you're flying. I will also say, yeah, it was playing in 3D at my 4DX screening, which it is not playing in 3D anywhere else. I think they just did it for like 4DX screenings or for like overseas or whatever, but like the flying stuff in the end looked incredible in 3D. And so, yeah, it really won me at the end. But yeah, I'll second the fact that I think the movie is probably like 20 minutes too long. And I think it's a little but I think that length doesn't come from like the like the Aladdin remake or like the Lion King remake where they're like, let's just add new stuff to justify making the movie. I think
There's
the
lots
length
of Beatle push shit.
yeah, I think the length comes from John Chu loving this source material so much and loving his actors so much that he doesn't want to cut like the little quiet beats.
John Chu is so good at making things just fun. And
Yeah.
this is not another Step Up 3 plug, although we do have that episode coming next year. I think back to like In the Heights, but also G.I. Joe 2 Retaliation is a movie that's so much more fun than it has any right to be, especially considering the first one didn't know how to have any fun.
Throwing shade at Steven Sommers' G.I. Joe.
I am throwing shade at Steven Sommers' G.I. Joe. The one last thing, I don't think we can get out of Wicked without just talking about what fucking good singers they are. This is what usually buries a lot of musicals, especially things doing live performances. And there are a couple like stunt actor castings in this who like are not singers and they just don't let them sing enough. They have Michelle Yeoh just kind of go through a small part and then move on and she doesn't sing again. Same thing with Jeff Goldblum, because when you have Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, who is so good in this, I would say like I'd like to see her in more things, but like she is very much playing a caricature and it 100% works. I'd be fine to give her more opportunities. I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine her playing like a quote unquote real human in something.
Yeah, that's also casting. And I mean, there are going to be other roles that she'll be perfect for. Maybe not as perfect as she is for Glinda, because this is it's incredible casting.
She's made in a lab for Glinda.
And I mean, spoiler alert, but you do get the original Broadway cast in there a little bit too. They're super charming to watch show up.
Yeah, I thought that was very fun. Like that's the kind of like fan service like I can get behind, because it was like it was justified, and also like I think because the movie's like longer, there aren't as many songs. So like when they show up and they get to do another song, I'm like, yay, another number, fun. I really enjoyed that bit. I would say like this is not my show, but I think all the songs are done well, where it's like none of the songs feel perfunctory in a way that sometimes with musical movies you can just feel like, okay, look at my watch,
it's time for another song.
How long is this number going to go on? These all had like a function in the story and they all felt different, and like even if they're not like my kind of jam, like I think they all work. And like if I see the movie a few more times and get to know those songs, I might like them a lot more. Like I think like the Wizard and I number was good. I like Popular is great, and then Defying Gravity was like they keep intercutting it with all this action that it almost doesn't get to play as like a song. But like when it like goes,
I don't think it works as
so
a
powerful.
Song, but like it does work as power.
I think it might have if it didn't feel as like it's one of those, the song's just too long for me at the end. I feel like the ending is a little padded, and I would just say like I think that all the songs are really well performed. All the performances are great. It's just that to me they don't have enough of a separation between the songs. They don't feel like they're like pulling back motifs, because the motifs don't feel as developed. They just kind of feel like it's a song. It's not a specific song, the way that Popular and Defying Gravity do feel like standout songs compared to the rest.
For me, the standout is when they are first rooming together and they talk about like how they loathe each other and what is this feeling, loathing. That's great.
Yeah, that's cute.
That's very much the Greatest Showman scene where they're just at the bar hanging out and having fun. I'm like, yeah, this is what I need in musicals.
That is by far the best part of that movie.
Oh, like no question. I would say it's really the only good part of that movie.
Speaking of only good parts of movies, did Gladiator have them? What are they?
That's such a good segue, Gavin.
He's so good at this. This is why we keep him on. I'm not sure I got to see Gladiator 2, given our experience. It's a movie I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm not sure how valid all my critiques are because, well, I mean, Gavin, would you like to cue up our amazing theatrical experience for this movie?
No, you go for it.
Okay. So we have, we're in the back section, and the front section has something I've never really seen before. It had three young boys, I think, speaking Armenian or Russian to each other, but they've all chosen to sit like 3 to 4 seats apart from each other, probably so no one feels gay. Mm-hmm. However, they have decided to continue just talking to each other as if they are in the next seat. this would already be enough of a problem, but they are also just like scrolling reels on their phone the whole time. During the pre-show and trailers, which this isn't a thing I'm usually strict about, they're just watching movies they're watching things without headphones, just like it sounded like sports or something. You should never be aware of what someone else is saying or watching in a theater. My fucking God. And they didn't have their phones on loud, to their credit. However, they had it on like the little flash vibration thing that I wasn't really even aware of. So there was just a strobing effect.
Oh, that's what that was. Yeah, that makes sense. It felt like they were just letting off the flash on the theater over and over again.
Yeah, I've truly never seen anything this disrespectful in a theater. Gavin, went down and asked one of them to turn their phone off or whatever you said to them. That did not make it to the other one. And like someone else people started yowling in the audience, just turn your fucking phone off. And they acted offended and are just like, what is happening to the world?
Yeah, it was a bummer of an experience.
Yeah, so I'm like painfully aware that I'm watching a movie the whole time, which I will say, Gladiator 2 is a movie that wants you to think about the first Gladiator every 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's not something that was nearly a strong enough movie, to me at least, to overcome that theater experience.
Yeah.
This sounds a lot like my experience watching Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes with 4 teenage boys right in front of me who kept like leaving the theater and coming back and were also on their phones. And like I had just finished like a 11-hour shift at the post office, and I was like, this was my one day off, and I just wanted to see a goddamn Planet of the Apes movie, and I almost fought these 4 children, and my girlfriend had to like restrain me.
Jesus.
But because of that, I could not tell you if I liked Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes or not, because like my memory is not of like the story about the eagle people. It's just like
the rage
wanting
under
to
the
strangle
surface.
These like 15-year-old boys from Whittier with their stupid haircuts. They all have the same haircut. These turning into an old man. And just...
Well, yeah, this is quite the
You were born
podcast
an old
fodder.
man,
This is
Adam.
relatable and something that people can take and use it to decide whether or not they see Gladiator 2.
Yeah,
I'll say I don't think the movie really. It feels kind of like the way that Lego sequels often can fall into a trap of either growing and improving on a piece or just kind of remixing a sadder playback, like Remember these days that we watch this movie.
Yeah.
This felt like the latter.
It's a lot of member berries.
It's a bummer of a, think about how good Gladiator was. What if we just did the same thing but kind of less
We
good,
shifted it around.
and we'll bring back a couple characters who maybe lived through the first movie.
Yeah, and kill them off unceremoniously.
it's the 2 Jakes of Gladiators.
Yeah,
Forget it, the 2 Jakes. It's the 2 Chinatowns.
Forget about it, Claudius.
Yeah.
I guess to shout out some things I did like about the movie. Denzel is Denzeling it up.
Denzel is so Denzel in this movie.
He's always a pleasure to watch. He's so good at, especially like that riding. He does a thing where he rides the knife's edge of like morality in a lot of his characters before just falling off the deep end into being a monster. It's great to see him do that. Always a good time. We've also got 2 emperors in this movie who I think are probably some of the stronger performances in it outside of Denzel and are very fun to watch.
Yeah, that is not one of the things that bothered me. People do point to is just like, oh, what if Gladiator, but more? What if there's 2 emperors? I'm like, yeah, that wasn't a problem with this movie.
No.
What if
Sharks were
there's
a
a
little
bunch of monkeys? I think
baboons were pretty fun. I like the baboons. I didn't like the sharks very much.
Yeah,
people have been ripping on that, and I'm just like, there's sharks in the Mediterranean. They didn't have to bring them that far. They just imported them up the river. They did flood that. And Adam, I'm curious, did you get to see this in 4DX? Did they flood the theater during that?
No, because fucking Moana 2 stole all the goddamn screens. They're like giving out all the Prime 4DX screens for this TV movie bullshit. Sorry, I'm mad at Moana 2. I'm just like,
we all should be. Also,
Yeah.
The Rock's been telling people that it's okay to just sing in theaters. No, it's not.
yeah. I think the big problem with Gladiator comes down to 2 things. It's Paul Mescal I know people love him. I've not seen him in any other movie. I've just missed like the big indie darlings that made him famous. But I think he is extremely bland and does not have the gravitas to make me care about him. And then I think the movie does the dumbest Lego sequel stuff
Yeah.
with his character. Like it's when like the first 20 minutes he's living in Africa. My joke was that this is I haven't seen like a white guy from Africa cause this much trouble to an empire since November.
No.
But no, when like they take him from Africa and then he's going to the Coliseum. We're just watching like this story of like a slave or someone being made into a slave going to battle. And like, this is fun. This is engaging. I would love it so much better if it was Michael B. Jordan or Daniel Kaluuya or like someone who, get someone who like looks like they're Moroccan or something, make it different than Gladiator 1. And get someone who has just like some screen presence. Like Paul Mescal looks really good on camera, but like he's just very bland, and like the characterization they give him with his like dead wife is very bland and very derivative of the first Gladiator. They just like, oh, she gets shot in an arrow and he's sad. I'm like,
at
okay,
least they
fine.
show the dead wife for this one. At least we somewhat get to meet that's one of my bigger complaints with the first one.
It's still fridging. It's not
Exactly.
I don't think she's not interesting. We get to see her be kind of a badass for a little bit, and then she's dead.
Yeah.
And
But
but then like
any time with her though, I think that's still an improvement.
where the movie kind of loses me and throws itself entirely out of balance is then they do this super dumb retcon stuff, because I don't know if this is a studio mandate or if Ridley is just so in love with the first Gladiator. They do this horrible retcon where Paul Mescal, it's this very convoluted plot where he is secretly Maximus's son, but he's also Connie Nielsen's son.
Yeah.
And
the trailers
she
show
like
all of this.
did a full Moses with him, and so he's the rightful heir to the king. And it's just like, I was so much more interested in him when he was just a guy, and now I'm like thinking about like, so when did Maximus like hook up with Connie Nielsen? And also it makes Connie Nielsen need to be in the movie, and she's the other big problem, I would say, is that she is just not very good. And I don't blame her. It's like
it's the writing and the direction and
you do feel her forcing every scene.
Absolutely.
Like, I've acted in a couple movies, and like you can tell when someone is just like, that the scene does not have the juice, so you're just faking it because you're trying to make something interesting happen. And she's doing that in every scene she's in. And kind of same thing with Paul Mescal, because like, just get them out of the movie. Like Denzel is the juice of the movie. Like Pedro Pascal also, I think, very interesting. And so anytime like there's fun Gladiator stuff or Denzel is on screen, I'm like, woohoo, this is dumb trash, 3.5 stars. And then it would cut to Connie Nielsen and Paul Mescal,
or any scene with a monkey. Like, let's be fair.
And then I would just
more
get
monkeys than you would think of this.
I would just get bored whenever like they tried to do the Gladiator 1 stuff, and I'm like, I don't care. And then it just strains so much credulity. Like there's a bit towards the end where they're like, oh, whose name was on there? They have a list of all the gladiators, and Maximus's name is chiseled off, because no one can know about him. But meanwhile, in the same building, down a different hallway, someone has made a shrine in English that has like his big quote, and they have his sword and his armor. So at the third act, he can put on the famous gladiator armor, and it's just like, I didn't care about the armor that Russell Crowe wore in the first Gladiator. I cared about Russell Crowe, and I cared about Joaquin Phoenix and like the drama. Like, I don't.
It's a real witch's hat moment.
No, it is like, but like the witch's hat, to get back to Wicked, is like, that moment does lead to a bit of characterization. Here, it's just like, they want you to be like, ooh, that armor, it saved his life towards the end. I guess it was some pretty special armor. Boy, I wish I could buy a replica of that armor at a prop shop or whatever for $2,000.
Well, when this is on streaming, you'll be able to click on the screen and buy Maximus's armor.
Yeah, but I will second that. Denzel is just so good in the movie. I almost like regretted giving this 2.5 out of 5, because like, if I'm thinking about the Denzel scenes, I'm like, no, this movie has a lot of juice. Like the bit where he's just like, that's politics. Like he's just doing, he's doing so many.
I love it. I love it so much.
Up. Like, well, that's, I think it's like,
there's no bad Denzel performances. There are bad Denzel movies.
Yeah, and I would say this is one of them. Although it's not unwatchable. Like it's got enough scenes that I would say like, yeah, sure, go out and see it in the theater. Go to see a matinee. But like, I think it never kind of justifies its existence. It's so thematically muddled. Like, what is this movie? Like Denzel's whole character is like always talking about like power and
power.
Trying to rise to the throne, and whether or not like this does the city need a strong emperor or a strong leader, or is it better to be moral, all this sort of stuff, but it doesn't really have like anything to say about that. It just kind of like, it's just there to kill time until Paul Mescal wins because he's the pretty white guy, and we're supposed to like applaud when he gets the throne.
It hints too about like, I mean, Denzel, like in the first movie, one of the more interesting characters is the like slave owner who owns gladiators. Denzel is another of that similar character who was a former slave, just like in the first movie. And everything he's doing is motivated by his past and like seeking out revenge, which is an interesting story. But you're stuck with, like you said, the A story is Paul Mescal and his mom. And I hadn't even conceived an idea of just ripping them out of the movie. There is plenty of story. It's such a bummer to think about it that way, where when I first watched the trailer, everyone was like, oh, it's the son of Maximus. I much have not been paying attention at all because I was like, yeah, that blonde kid from the first movie grew up to be one of the blonde emperors. And
it'll be more interesting.
I just assumed that was the movie I was walking into.
Yeah.
And what a bummer to not get what you said.
I like the idea that kid from the first one like grew up radicalized and became another, fascist emperor. It's also like, it's a shame with so many of these Lego sequels that the idea, like they just start from a point that like, oh, nothing that happened in the first movie mattered. Somehow Palpatine's back, like that sort of bullshit.
Yeah, it has to be the
and I'm
same.
just like, thought you saved the day, and like, I know history. I know Rome didn't like save itself, but the idea that like instantly you have to flee from persecution, like she instantly sends her son off. Like that's what happened after the movie finished. Just mad dash for power and fascism. It's like, well, okay, don't do that. Don't have that be the canon ending of the first movie. I do think. I similarly I like Gladiator 2 in a lot of ways, but it's also a movie that commits an unforgivable sin of it makes Gladiator worse. And I didn't even love Gladiator.
Yeah.
They do so many parallels with like Russell Crowe in the first Gladiator, but I think the movie forgets that like why Russell Crowe was able to do so well in the arena was because he was a general. Like he was a great general who got, they tried to kill him and all that sort of stuff. And so that's why he's able to, be smarter than the other slaves and gladiators, and he's able to fight better. Here, it's just Paul Mescal wins because he's the special pretty boy.
He's
the son of a general, and as you know, the fighting ability is transferred.
It's hereditary.
Genetically special pretty boy.
Yeah.
It made me laugh out loud. There's like a couple moments where they're trying to show that he's like a leader.
Yeah,
and it's so half-assed and poorly developed. Like they're waiting in the wings ready to go to gladiator time, and like they're in the ship, like the galley, and they're about to row, and Paul Mescal is just like, remember everyone, row together. Like all of his advice is just, like at one point he says like, everyone remember our goal is survive, and it's like, yeah, no shit, Paul Mescal. This is not a helpful speech that you're giving. You're not like talking about smart military tactics. Although I did love the bit with the sand and the rhino. That was pretty cool. Like there's fun stuff in the movie. It's just dumb and it doesn't cohere to anything. But like I was only bored for parts of it. Like it was just very inconsistent in terms of like how engaging it was. I love all the dumb shit in it. Like if really Scott just wanted to make Gladiator but dumber and trashier, which is kind of what he did with Alien Covenant. Like like I like Alien Covenant because it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna make Alien but for you fucking dumb piggies. But he tried to do both, I think, in Gladiator 2, where he's like trying to get the prestige of the first one while also being a lot schlockier. And then it just tries to do too much, I would say.
All right. Well, that's Glicked, and it sounds like maybe you should just go out and watch Here from everyone.
No, I would say both Wicked. Actually, I don't know. Fuck. I guess I technically gave Here 3 stars, but the more I think about it, that movie is really dumb. It just like it was
all
like
of these movies are very dumb. Adam.
It was like a dumb magic trick that worked on me because like I'm a little softy, and if you don't get into Here's wavelength, like if you're not someone who likes earnest, hard on your sleeve drama, you will fucking hate Here. There's nothing for you if you aren't the type of person who would get like sad at the thought of like a parent telling their son like, I should have been nicer to you, but like that stuff happens to me and I'm like sobbing. Yeah, no, but Gladiator is more fun than here. A lot of movies are more fun than here. Oh, you guys got your kitties on screen. That's fun.
I like the idea of you putting that on the DVD cover for
Well,
Gladiator 2.
Yeah,
More
a lot
fun
of
than
movies.
here.
I, for one, can't wait to watch here on a plane.
Actually, no. I think that would be terrible. Yeah, the here would be
Just looking
awful.
at one
on like
unchanging thing when my other option is to look at the back of the seats.
yeah,
I like the idea of that being the movie that you are forced to watch, sitting behind when you've left your headphones at home and you're watching the screen that someone else is watching because there's nothing else to look at because you forgot a book too, and you're just, man, this movie this guy's watching is not moving along very fast.
They're still in this room. Weird. How long? They're never cutting. Wait, but somehow we're in dinosaur times? What's going on? There are dinosaurs in here, I should say.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for stopping by. You made a movie, which is probably already premiered by the time this comes out, but do you know what happens to it after that?
I don't know. Yeah, so it's premiering at December 12th at the Anchorage Museum Theater in Anchorage, Alaska for part of the Anchorage Film Festival, which might still be going on by the time this airs. I don't know. It runs from like the 6th to the 15th. So that's where we're premiering. I've submitted to a few other festivals. Haven't heard back yet. But hopefully it'll be playing more places around like the lower 48. We filmed it in Alaska, so that's why I wanted to premiere it there. But I'm trying to show it around like California and Seattle. So yeah, you can follow me on Blue Sky at Adam Wrightgood. That's also, I believe, my Instagram handle. And I'll post, if we get into more festivals and if we're shown in more places. But yeah, I am terrified, especially like coming on here to like nitpick like. Honestly, like 3 legendary filmmakers. Well, maybe John Chu's not legendary yet, but I love John Chu.
I mean, his box office returns, he's doing okay.
Yeah, I'm coming
I don't
here
think
to.
he needs our praise.
Yeah, no, but I'm really throwing shade at Zemeckis and Ridley Scott, 2 like absolute legends, and then meanwhile, like my little movie I made for $15,000 is going to be playing on a theater and.
But to be clear,
I have no control over it or how people are going to feel it, and it's terrifying.
Better than Wicked, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, no, my movie Uphill, it is so much better than Wicked, the beloved musical. Yeah, it's definitely not like a quiet indie movie with a very niche audience.
It's not a couple people hanging out on a mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not too late to add musical numbers to it. I think I could like.
I want a movie to go back for reshoots the way that like Marvel always. I think there are 2 Marvel movies being reshot right now, and I bet neither of them are just adding musical numbers.
Yes. Well, there's a James L. Brooks movie called I'll Do Anything where they did the reverse, which is hilarious to me. I've seen it. It's not a good movie, but they filmed it with musical numbers. Had a test screening and we're like, oh no, we've made a horrible mistake. Like even like Prince wrote songs for this movie, and then they just they did reshoots to like just lift all of the songs. So you watch the movie, you'd have no idea it was once a musical, and it's almost impossible to find the musical version. Anyway, I just love that detail about James L. Brooks's I'll Do Anything. Rent that instead of my movie. Go to your local Blockbuster and rent I'll Do Anything.
No.
Yeah, Gavin, what do you got to plug?
I mean, in reality, go get Dropout and watch the show I shot called Nobody Asked. It's real fun. It's a good time. It's like it's kind of like Mythbusters, but answering questions that no one would ask.
I got nothing. I'm headed out to the Philippines tomorrow, and I do not want you to know what I'm up to.
If you're in the Philippines, go find Sage.
Yeah, I'm on one of the islands doing beach stuff, probably playing a lot of basketball and doing karaoke. I will fit in.
Go duet this man in karaoke.
Yeah, if you hear someone singing In Excess really loudly, it's probably Sage.
Christ, you know me so well.
I know your karaoke songs at this point.
Well, thanks for stopping by. We'll clean up this outro.
What are you talking about? I think it's so smooth.
All right, until next time, bye.